Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you and peace out to the rest of you. The blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media signing black and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Before I get into the meat and the main idea of this message, I need to clarify something, possibly for legal reasons. There is a commentator, and you may have seen his comments under some of my videos, and he says that he is out here randomly assaulting certain black women, and it is because as a lighter-skinned black male, he's pretty much been shut out by all attractive black women, specifically if they're light-skinned too. And he has therefore been forced to resort to violating the rectums of men that are trans and consider themselves women or ladyboys. Forced to engage in natural sex because they've closed off any options of natural heterosex if they're worth anything to look at. Now, this is disturbing because he says he's out here committing assaults. And I've told him, cut it out. I can't report him. I mean, a regular assault does not fall under FBI jurisdiction, so that means I got to know in which jurisdiction he lives in. I can't find that out. I don't have the means or the know-how. But if any of you were able to find out, I would say actually call some mental health professionals first. I do not, on my channel, support assault, sexual assault, or just, whooping somebody's behind. Now, morally speaking, I've got no problems with it when somebody has actually done you wrong and you wait in the cut with a golf club or a baseball bat and you beat the snot out of that particular individual that did you wrong, because that's the only way they're going to learn their lesson. Legally speaking, I'll tell you, I know it's still illegal. You're going to get in a world of trouble for it. But I'm not going to morally object to that. However, this is someone admitting he just randomly assaults. He picks his targets randomly, and they're women. I don't support that. And before some of you misandrous sisters get happy to hear this, let me explain this. It's not because of some intrinsic value that you hold if you are misandrist. It is because he admitted that it's random. And when you would randomly select targets of a demographic because of what someone else of the same demographic did to you, and the demographic is not an ideological demographic, but something genetic and beyond one's control, then you're going to grab up innocent people and punish them for what the guilty have done. This means that the guilty, who may actually be going around assaulting men, as an example, are getting away with it. That's what this means. That's all it means. It's still wrong, though. As much as I hate a misandrist or a feminist, as much as I hate them, the fact is that this would still be wrong. And so I'm disavowing anything like that. And I'm also saying that if any of you was able to find out where this dude is and report him to first the mental health authorities in his region, please do. I can't figure that out. I don't know how to get IP addresses and things like that. So anyway, that being said, let me move on to what my main subject, my main topic is going to be. That's the anti-intellectualism of the black gynarchy, if you will. The matriarchy and the gynocracy, this hatred of intellect and reason and intelligence in black men. I'm not concerned with what the reasons are, but I understand how this started. The brief history, simply put, is that, of course, the slaveholding, the planter class, really, of slaveholders in the South, once slave breeding became the means of sustaining the population, did have an interest in breeding slaves that would be strong of body and weak of mind. Naturally, I mean, you're pretty much looking for a human horse. I get it. That's what you're looking for. He'll do what you say. He'll do the work you physically can't do, but he'll never put two and two together to understand that look, if he can lift these things you can't lift, then he can kick your ass too. That being said, I understand their motive. I don't approve, but I understand it. But there's more. You see, at the end of it all, this weapon of anti-intellectualism, after being aimed at the black population as a whole, was then re-aimed from within by the gynocracy at the men. And the white supremacist planter class of that day shrugged their shoulders, held their empty hands up, frowned a little bit, and said, oh, okay, fine, sure. If it maintains the same order, go ahead. You're under us, but, this will keep him under you, and hey, works out for us. Now, bondage is over. It shouldn't have been done during bondage, but bondage is over. They're still maintaining this. I want to tell you another thing about anti-intellectualism in general. It's going to bake your noodle, but it may shock you, but here's the truth of it. Anti-intellectualism, believe it or not, is not unique to black people of any nationality, American or otherwise. Anti-intellectualism, believe it or not, is found among some of the conservative societies of the world, like India, like the Arabian Gulf where I live. Bedouins here can be really anti-intellectual. They don't respect education. They don't want to hear it now. They don't hate me for being educated, but they can't stand when I actually apply academic standards to their sons, i.e., he cheated, so he got a 0 because I caught him. Why don't you let him go? Because he cheated and I caught him. Yeah, let's talk this out. Yeah, okay, he does the assignment over again, and this is the deadline. And if he does it and he doesn't cheat, he doesn't get a 0. How about that? Now, I'm telling you, it's here too, but I want you to understand what is different between the anti-intellectualism of the American nigger, because I'm not going to say Negro. If you anti-intellectual, you a nigger in America. Matter of fact, like I've said, the Arab Bedouin is the original nigger as far as I can make out. They probably had this anti-intellectualism even before what happened to us. Because there was a case where a Bedouin man came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace on him, and said, he started bragging about how many kids he had and how much he never kissed them. I never kissed him. I got 10 kids and I don't kiss them. That's that nigger stuff. Now this precedes the American manufacture of the nigger, doesn't it? This is 1,400 years ago we're talking about. Wasn't nobody walking around calling somebody a nigger at that point, but this guy was the definition of the nigger. There was another cat one time when some spoils of war were being distributed, and this guy came up and he was like, Muhammad, be fair, be just, as if he was going to be anything else. Everybody knew him to be just and fair and trustworthy, even from before he was ever a prophet. This was a nigger. It's like somebody coming along and telling you to learn English first before you talk to them, and you speak English as a first language. I kid you not. Just nigger stuff. But the difference between the anti-intellectualism of the American nigger and these Bedouin niggers here is that it is not supported here by the gynocracy and the matriarchy. It is not. These women do not want their sons to be weak of mind. They're not looking for that. The women are getting education more than the men because they can, but the mothers do not sit up here and say, my son don't need no education. The fathers don't say that. Oh, actually, the fathers might do that. I don't know. I could see that happening. But what's going on here is that the women are not sitting up here supporting that, and a man's intellect does not preclude him from reproductive success. Now, not getting married in this culture may do that, but his intellect does not preclude him from getting married, which therefore does not preclude him from reproductive success. There is no active preference on the part of these women, expressed or hidden, to breed with the dumbest feather mucker out there. That's not what they're trying to do. The intellect of a man is not sexually unappealing. They don't have a problem with that. Maybe a father would stop a smart man from marrying his daughter because the father might say, well, this guy's a bookworm or an egghead. Maybe. I haven't heard those conversations before, but I could see it happening because I spend time with the men. I know the mothers don't. I know the women in general don't. How do I know? Well, I can ask somebody that knows. She didn't even understand the question when I asked her. What? Well, of course they don't want stupid men. Yeah, they're going to try not to marry a dumb guy. I said, no, I'm saying, does a man's intellect make him unappealing? Why the hell would that make him unappealing? She was answering the question backwards because she thought I asked it backwards. Because in her mind, nobody walks around looking for a man to be stupid unless she's a diabolical woman. That was her answer. If a woman wants a man to be stupid and she doesn't want a smart man, it is because either she thinks she's stupid or because she's diabolical and she's scheming and manipulative, and that's what she's looking for. You know what she asked me after that? Are you comparing them to African American women? And I nodded my head, yes. She gave me information, but actually when I answered yes, she just shook her head as if to say, you can't do that. You can't, because they're in a class by themselves. Completely. She even said to me, let me tell you, before I started, she said to me, Black, before I began to wear the hijab, and this is when I was working in the United States, before I came out here and became a teacher and met you, she said to me, before all this happened, let me tell you something. I was working in the Midwest, and it was some African American women that came up to me, and they said, "Oh, you got white hair." And I asked her, were they talking about gray hair? And she said, no, that's not what they said. And then she imitated them. And she started doing the air grabbing and the neck rolling. She said, oh, you got that white hair. This time she was imitating them, neck rolling, finger snapping, air grabbing with the attitude. Like she had offended them because of how nappy her hair was not, at least that day. Now, I'm not going to tell you what her hair texture is when she does nothing to it. The point is that at that particular day, they noticed that it wasn't like theirs. This is before she began to wear hijab. She said to me, you have to be honest. I mean, this is not something that is normal. Look, Black, and she explained to me, Black, you are a smart man, a loving father, and you look like this. You look as good as you do, and yet you were single when I met you, or you were about to be single when I met you. Already going through a divorce. I understand that divorce was based on the government. It didn't have to do with you or her. I get that. What about the first one? Why did she? What was her problem? And she even said to me, I can tell that you all suffer underneath them. I know y'all do. For one, I've heard you talk about it to some others. Number two, I have seen how the black men in the Midwest won't be with black women. She said the black women are single and the black men are with white women, or maybe Latin American women. And then she said to me, as a matter of fact, I know more women from my culture that are with African American men than I know of African American women that are with African American men. She told me that, and I was like, oh, wow. She said, it's clear. It's clear as day. Y'all got a lot to deal with, and I get it. But see, you can't compare. No, some things that sisters do are not different from what others do, but there are certain things they do that nobody else does anywhere we know of. And that anti-intellectualism, that was one of them. It might exist, but from what I've been able to piece together, there is no part of the world in which if some men have it, the women go along with it. There was a time, even in South Africa, as similar as South Africa is to us, there was a time when even in South Africa that wasn't being done. The women were for education even when fathers might not have been. But then again, I admit, South Africa broke the black man there too. Apartheid broke that black man. That white man broke that black man. And that's why I look and I say, why would sisters in the States take that white supremacy and turn around and re-aim one of its tools and weapons specifically at the man? That's what you got to deal with, gentlemen. There is nobody else on the planet that is trying to breed themselves into an idiocracy. Nowhere else. It is only amongst us that there is an actual mating preference that would lead to the breeding of an idiocracy, both because of the unintentional incest that develops, which is not intentional, which is not meant. I understand. I'm not blaming sisters for trying to do that, but rather for just being stupid enough to walk us into that by all insisting on screwing the same few men. I can't even put that on the men. Can't do that. Don't worry, there's something for which I can blame the men, but that's another recording. But also because of them intentionally looking for the men that are intelligent and saying, well, you can raise as stepfathers these babies, but you don't get to have your own. Except maybe if you raise 4 of my babies by some other man that's not as intellectually superior as you, I might give you one of your own. But they probably gonna be too smart to get any pussy anyway. I kid you not. It's like they want the intelligence to only be the realm of the women. My father said that when he was growing up, and he grew up, my father grew up in the southwestern United States, but there were enough black people in the place. He grew up in Texas. My father said, even in that ghetto in which he grew up, that people allowed girls to study. Nobody got on a girl's case if she studied and made good grades. They got on the boys' case. He said the girls would not F you and the boys would make jokes about you. Everybody knew you wasn't getting none if you were studying and making good grades. Them two didn't go together. That wasn't happening until he got to college. Then things changed when he said when he went to visit home from college, and he went to college in the southeastern United States. I'm not going to say what that was, but when he said when he went back to visit his hometown, that was when the booty calls started. He was getting calls from girls he didn't even know they had his number or his parents' number. Black senior, you at home? Well, obviously I answered the phone. I mean, this is before cell phones, right? He said that was when he realized that it was okay for him to be smart in their eyes, and he didn't want nothing to do with him at that point because now he was in college and he was around some sisters that didn't mind the fact that he had a brain. That's part of what they were looking for. The problem then, though, was that, see, there at that time in history, there was still an expectation that a black woman could outgrow that BS. There was a type of black woman that would outgrow that stupidity and that foolishness, that hybristophilia. You know what? Generally, sapiophobia and hybristophilia. You could say it like that. Here's the thing, though. He thought that was going to be the case for my generation and my age group. So did my mother, because that's what they experienced. They didn't know that things had changed to where amongst our age group, gentlemen, you are expected, or rather you were demanded, even when she is in her 20s, then even when she is in her 30s, you are demanded to still be the niggerilla and not the intellectual. That's what they didn't understand. For years, they didn't get it. They didn't understand it. My mother to this day wonders why I picked the two women I picked that became the mothers of my children. And I told her, Mom, everybody else was worse. That's why. Even at those ages, everybody else was worse. Even then, everybody else was worse. They weren't growing up for the most part, and two of them were acting grown up enough to trick me. And they still had some of them nigger preferences I found out about later on. So I want you gentlemen to understand that there's anti-intellectualism abroad, certain places, even in conservative parts of the world that we think whose people have their stuff together. Because, you don't see the ignorant Indian over there in the U.S. I see them here. I see the educated and the ignorant and all. I see all kinds of them over here. I mean, hell, they got some here that go to jail for things like selling some drugs, They're the niggas. And they got an educated class, too. I mean, all of it's here. Over there in the States, you only see the ones that got the visa to go to the U.S. In Canada, same thing. That's all you see. I mean, in all honesty, in the States, you see the ones who are considered failures that they become attorneys instead of becoming engineers or physicians or programmers. I mean, I kid you not. You're seeing that. That's the strata of society from which they come over here. You got some of them that are just like, man, look, they're not even driving taxis for a living. They ain't even doing that. So that being said, you're going to see that everywhere. And don't let anybody act like it's only us that has that anti-intellectualism problem. This is what is the case, though. See, amongst other people, if it is the case, it's the men that are anti-intellectual because they don't want to raise the bar from which women can expect anything. And the women are not anti-intellectual. There amongst you, it is different. The men are willing to be as smart and as intellectual as the gynocracy will tolerate, and the gynocracy will not tolerate that. And for those who do become that way, they are to be used and abused. They are to be abused in the process of becoming such, and they are to be used when it finally translates into resources and any sort of success. Sometimes even still abused. That's where the difference comes in. They are to be punished with celibacy and even just outright disrespect from these women. And then when that's over, when they get a little bit older, they can get some, but they got to raise other men's kids. They're pretty much treated as genetic inferiors because of their intellectual superiority. That is what is unique to us. And I'm going to say this, gentlemen, that's just one of many reasons that we're not going to be able to save the community, so to speak, or the African-American community. It can't be done. We might be able to save the black race, sure, but not the African-American community. It can't be done. See, most sisters really ain't trying to get out there, and most of them ain't really chasing down white dudes like that. Not yet. Most ain't. What is happening, though, is that you got a few more that are and they're vocal about it. But a lot of sisters, they ain't necessarily going for the white dude. What they are saying is the brothers got to be all kind of mutually exclusive things. And they do get sick and tired of a man being stupid. They don't want a man that's retarded, like certifiably retarded. They don't want that. But the problem is that they still are eliminating the men whose intellect shows. They're still doing that. And this age group is doing that up into their 40s. Sorry. I'll say this. When I say to you at the ends of my recordings, Black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day, it is because it would make more sense. It would still be bad, but it would make more sense if they were more pro-education than we were. As bad as that would be, and I would not recommend that. You don't want to be like these bedouin niggas. Don't do it. Because we ain't got that old money to fall back on, and they losing what they got. They struggling. Oh, they struggling. But it can happen like this because it's a matriarchy. It's a gynocracy. That's why this can happen. Wherein we're willing to be as intelligent as allowed, and they're sitting up putting a limit on how intelligent you can be and have kids to whom you could pass that on. I shit you not. That's the only way in which we're unique. So we're going to have a patriarchy, if for nothing else other than to save the black intellect, specifically black male intellect, not just DNA, but intellect. Because they're going to breed it out as best they can. I mean, think about it. They would rather wind up single with cats and vibrators and occasional F-buddies that come through than to wind up at a young age having an intellectual man's baby. Thank you for listening. I hope that one day this will no longer be true and that this recording will not be relevant and necessary. But until that day, I hope it helps. And I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and the depth of my black mind. Thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum. And black heterosexual, non-select, intellectual thinking black male power just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy, unapologetically, until extinction or judgment day.